brothers, we all have this experience with young men and women we walk with, spiritual direction, confession, where they're finally in a place to say the deeper yes, or the beginning of a deeper yes. And there's this radical desire and freedom, but a lot of fear to be like, okay, we're just like, Jesus wants that part of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this like invitation to be, okay, Jesus, I want to let you into this memory in my heart, or this trauma, or maybe this abuse, or maybe this loneliness, this sadness, this depression, this anxiety. And I've never been there before. And maybe sin and shame, right? And we leave these things locked away. And I think a part of the second conversion is giving Jesus the deeper permission to come into these places, and there's just deeper breakthroughs.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos, and you know that's who we are. We make our way.
Is it on? Is it recording?
Yes, I'm Father Mark Mary, and this is my 96th episode.
I'll push you record.
And these guys,
and for some reason I looked down because I didn't see you do it, and I was questioning you. I repent in the name of Jesus. I ask forgiveness for totally judging you.
Father Angel did it was it last episode?
Oh, easy.
Recently?
Don't start throwing things. I just want to say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm Father Angel.
It's Father Innocent.
That was quick. That was well played. Hi, my name is Father Mark Mary, and I've done this 96 times.
But it's a reasonable concern because of all those times I pushed, we recorded without me running the sound, right? I'm 96 for 96.
I recently, speaking of a book, Born to Fire, get the book, but I was recently
still talking about that.
I was recently doing the audio recording for Born to Fire.
Yeah.
That's also fun. And I started 2 or 3 paragraphs in. I was feeling great. And I had Father Mark Mary's voice seared into my head. Make sure you push record.
You forgot to push record.
I forgot.
Unbelievable.
So I had to stop. And I was like, oh, I was in this flow, and I didn't hit record. So I had to start over, but I just think it's funny.
Interesting.
Anyways, we want to welcome you.
Interesting fact that our listeners probably don't know is, right, the podcast began, we started recording before the pandemic or stuff, whatever, and that was March
2020.
Yeah. So we already had
tough year.
We had a number of episodes ready, but we lived at different friaries, and it was kind of in the most intense time. So we were quarantined in separate places, and we're okay, let's go ahead and start this thing. So I had to record initial episodes on my own just because we couldn't be in the same space. And I recorded 3 episodes by myself, and I had 3 mics set up because I was going to have other guys join us. They couldn't come. So I had 3 mics set up, and I recorded 3 episodes, and I was and so this is I don't know, almost 2.5 hours worth of stuff. You can keep going.
We're out of water.
Oh, we're out of water. We don't have anything to drink.
It's okay.
2.5 hours of stuff, me in a room just talking. And then I went to upload it to Dropbox, and I listened to him why is it so quiet? And I tried to turn it up, and I was like, this is weird. And I sent it to him can you use this? What happened? And it turns out I was speaking like this into a microphone that wasn't plugged into the recorder.
One of these other ones were on?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so say your recorder heard me at a whisper, and I was just you see, here's what you have to do. The will of God.
See,
So that happened.
That happened 96 episodes ago.
Yeah. And I pushed record, by the way. It was just the wrong microphone.
Yeah. And you're very detail oriented, so I totally trust you. I think we're just ramping up. We're kind of we've been going for it, and it'd be really
unfortunate.
Unfortunate.
What happened is I pushed it well in advance, like a little podcasting ninja, and this little podcasting white belt over here couldn't keep up.
I'm a lightweight. I'm a lightweight.
Skill.
I'm an amateur.
It's not true.
All right, Ange, look alive.
I'm ready. Hey, you guys remember that time last week I turned really fast and had a crick in my neck?
Yeah.
So I'm feeling that a little bit. Ow.
That was a bummer. One of the fruits of Born to Fire is what we're going to be working through next couple of weeks. This is the Lenten, particularly men's identity journey book Father Innocent wrote, which that we're going to be going through for all of Lent, bornafirebook.com. So if you want to check that out. This is one of those experiences. I wonder how you would be we're so different. Is Father Innocent was recording the the audiobook the other day, like we talked about.
Get the audiobook. It's fun.
And so for the first part of it, Kelsey from Blessed Is She was on there kind of just like to help him out and just to kind of like,
Yeah,
it's
just-
good to have another person.
Yeah. She was helping me out with style
Yeah.
and speed and just having someone there is
Yeah. And then
super
about
helpful.
6 hours into it on her Saturday, she's like,
I'm done.
Totally.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't like that, but it was like that. But then, so what Father Innocent did is he had one of the postulants come in and sit in the room with him. And I would not, because what was the reason? You just like to have somebody else there?
Yeah, totally. Like it's weird, but like you're doing a very human thing, and you're like I feel deeply with what I'm reading, and it like I was tired, and like I was kind of like you could tell, and so
Yeah.
I just needed someone there, like needed support. I needed to like
You need some connection.
yeah, I needed to feel connected to someone. And
See, Father Mark Mary, everybody doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about being connected to people.
But it was fun because like he's sitting there and Father Innocent's like, my brother, we are tempted to hide just like Adam did in the garden. We hide from God. And he's just sitting there listening. I'm like, and I would not in a million years, I would prefer 1,000% just to be by myself in that kind of situation. It's like a little bit vulnerable. I just want,
Actually, in most situations.
but you're the one who told me to do it with Kelsey anyway.
yeah.
It's good to
But
have
then-
someone there.
But it was kind of like, that was like very practical. Like just to
Yeah,
have
but
somebody
it-
hear it and
But
just
for
to kind
me,
of check
Father Mark
it.
Mary is not just practical.
Oh,
Like
no.
I needed to experience the communion. Like
We
I
gotta-
wanted to be with
We
someone.
gotta hurry up and get through Lent. I'm tired of talking about this book.
Excuse me.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
By the way, I am a sanguine and an extrovert and I like people. I just
That's true.
Just get angry sometimes.
just don't. This is like this.
great.
Anyway, we're different.
That's why, yeah, we're different and we're a good team because we're different.
yeah, exactly. Complementarity though sometimes leads to conflict, but not with us.
Unity
yeah.
is not conformity.
Uniformity.
Uniformity.
Are you guys done?
Sweet. All right. This is our next episode. There's still no water. We're not. This isn't the. What was the rock?
Don't worry. Don't worry.
It's
Don't worry.
really
Don't
What
worry.
was the
Okay.
rock that water came from? The desert, Meribah.
Yeah,
With the-
it's not Maribah, bro.
It's not it.
All right. One of the fruits of my desert experience is I now drink. What's the instant coffee again?
Cool.
Interesting.
Question before we get into it. Would we ever do an episode where we allow people just to present questions? We just answer questions? Is that boring?
It's
Or is
not.
that a little too predictable?
That's not boring. It would be very difficult for that to be consistent with the genre of podcasts we're doing
Got it. Okay, cool.
because there's like a certain feel to what we do and what we talk about.
Yeah, we got a certain
and
vibe.
Q&A would be a very different thing. And I don't feel very strong as a Q&A person.
Yeah.
See, that's where I thrive.
Is it?
The
I wanted to be the
unpredictability.
White House press secretary.
But that's
Something-
true. He did, but
Something like
it wouldn't be live Q&A.
spontaneous and just kidding.
Let's not lie. This is kind of spontaneous.
But
you know
the
what I mean?
questions would be like, what are how?
I mean, I don't care about it that much. We don't really need to talk about it.
All right, Father Mark Mary, take us home. This is our last episode for the day, but people don't necessarily know that. So
Now they do.
This is a great topic, though. I'm excited about this.
What is the topic today, Father Angeles?
The topic today. Oh, you want me to start this today? I'll try
Yeah.
to start this today, everybody, since I never get a chance to do anything else. The topic of today is actually
Keep talking to the mic.
please.
the topic of today. The topic of today is called what Father Haggerty calls the second conversion.
Mm.
And Father Innocent gives the postulants a reading list, and obviously this is on it. Sometimes I'm just kind of aware what they're reading and just try to stay with it. And I'll often go back to this and what Haggerty talks about on the poor, which we've talked about already, and then what he also talks about on this second conversion, I think resonates with a lot of people because it's an invitation to go deeper. And isn't that what our audience wants? This is what this podcast is about. It's always an invitation to go deeper.
Yeah.
So it's exciting because I think sometimes we can get comfortable, we can get safe, and oftentimes we want to go deeper, we just don't know how. We don't really know what that means, right? And or we get in the comfort and in the security of kind of like a spiritual life that doesn't necessarily want to go deeper. We just get distracted by the comfort, or we just get distracted by maybe what we're after when it becomes to like something that is not really in depth.
Mhm.
So it's beautiful because I think Haggerty's you can't stay still, right? You can't, either you're going forward, you're going backwards. There's no plateau in spiritual life, as they say, right? And so just the reality of, if this fire, born of fire, if the fire of what the Lord is doing in our lives and the life of grace, and we're always invited into a deeper relationship with the Lord, there's always something different. There's always something new. There's always something that the Lord wants to do. There's always a deeper need to surrender, a deeper need to let go. And so I think this is what Haggerty proposes, Father Innocent, and you wrote this, but I think this is what he proposes. He proposes that if we have an eye to this and recognizing that he's always calling us deeper and always calling us to let go, we're never done having conversions. We're never done responding to Jesus proposing us there's more, right? Isn't that the gift of the spiritual life? There's always more.
Yeah.
And there's always a deeper invitation that the Lord wants to do more in us. Anyway.
We talked about the rich young man last week, and I think he can just teach us a lot, because I think there's just different facets to his story and to his invitation by the Lord. And I think maybe it's just good. We could throw him out as an example of just a reality that oftentimes, Haggerty says that oftentimes that in a life of following Jesus, the first time we say yes to Jesus or kind of orient our life is not actually the most important yes. It's actually the later yeses of a deeper surrender and a deeper giving of my life and trust and yeah, I mean, I'll just use the word surrender again. Like it's actually the later surrenders that mean a lot more. And so for the rich young man, he tells Jesus pretty clearly that he is living a life where he's following the commandments. He's very aware of the Torah, right? What this means is that he is a follower of God. And so that he's made a decision, and probably through the gift of his parents or his family, he's made a decision to follow God, to follow the law of God, right? And he asked Jesus this really pretty incredible question, like, but what do I still lack? And I think that's something that's just really confronting for us, but also super just beautiful, is that like we come to a place where when we follow God and we experience him, and you just, when God breaks into your life, you just, there's a deep thirst and hunger for him. And so you go on this journey, and there's never a plateau, like Father Angelo said, that's Fulton Sheen. There's never this like stopping. There's this never, we don't have to, like, God's never going to like walk away from us, or God's never going to just say, okay, so we've arrived. And so there's this constant invitation to the journey to walk towards Jesus and to keep walking with him. And what happens in our hearts is that the desire for love and intimacy and fulfillment just keep growing in us. And so Haggerty talks about what's really dangerous is when we start to compromise. And I think this is kind of maybe another word we could use, or just kind of throw out there, that we know we followed God. We're Catholic. We go to mass. Maybe we say, maybe have our family prayers, or, as priests and religious, we have certain things that we've said yes to in our life. So like on the outside, we have said yes to following God. We are clearly, like, our lives are Christian lives. But slowly, little by little, we begin to compromise on small things. And I'm not here to say, I could speak about my own compromises, but it's a real temptation. We say in religious life that, we, at the beginning, you give everything up to follow Jesus, and you spend your whole life taking it back, right? You start making small compromises where it's just this little disorientation or little distraction or a little lack of trust, or little kind of like, oh, I'm gonna try to find fulfillment somewhere else. And little by little, you start walking back your yes, or start turning towards something else. And this is, I think, what we want to invite people to, is that the second conversion is about, it's not good enough anymore just to do the right things, or like have a, like kind of make concrete actions that live a Christian life. But I still desire deeper intimacy with God. And I've made compromises in my life, and there's going to be a point where I'm going to say yes again to the deeper gift. It's real. And I think we can sometimes just think that, like, once I've said yes, then this is it. And then we just kind of get into, like, we just kind of go through the motions. And I think we want to, it's dangerous to do that.
Yeah. I take notes when I'm doing this stuff.
Do it. Go for it.
I'm so professional. Episode 96. I wasn't doing this episode number 5. You know what I mean?
I got something sweet to say, so if you're gonna go.
So, what are we talking about again? Just kidding. So just to be clear, this is actually this episode we're covering 2 chapters, which is Second Conversion and Passion for God. So we're bringing those together because we're only able to do 8 episodes. We can't do a chapter per. One thing before I move on, particularly for Brother Priest, is I can't recommend this book enough for our own edification. Father Haggerty across the board through it. It speaks to me a lot, actually. So for me personally, particularly, I think this example, going through this book has been huge. It's definitely going to be one that is at the top of my recommendation list for those who are kind of along the journey a little bit. You know, I don't know if it's like the first one I throw out to somebody who's like brand new, just beginning.
Oh, for sure.
Give them Habits for Holiness. You know what I'm saying? Or Ames House bestseller. Or Born of Fire. But if we're ready to,
you got anything? Sorry, I don't have anything. I wrote a blog once.
Did you?
No.
So this is because I want to second conversion. I just kind of to maybe help understand like what we're talking about is Father Haggerty actually he's using it in a pretty specific way, which maybe just to be honest, like we're not going to be like super tight and technical on his use of it through the book. But if you read it, it's very kind of clear of just this. It's essentially like this like kind of radical resurrender, willingness to suffer for love of God, right? But I do think that the conversion experience isn't just like, okay, first conversion, second conversion, like, but it's like for most people who are listening, really what they're probably still in kind of the wave of their first conversion. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like not just that moment where I was reoriented and started following Jesus, but kind of that first, I mean, it can be a decade or 15 years of allowing the fruit of that yes to continue to kind of go deeper. And then there are going to be experiences generally later in life where there's this radical invitation to an even greater surrender and trust, which is kind of what he's talking about. But I think another kind of good analogy for it could be like the second conversion. It's like pretend you meet your wife, you get married, you fall in love, like she's your beloved, right? And there's this romance. Your heart is so moved by her. You're doing all of these romantic things, not because you have to, but because it just is what it's like radiates from your heart, right? Then you have kids, and then, you raise your kids, and like with the number of children and life and age and work, there's just a lot more other things that are coming in, which are making it like that. There's more distractions or more things that are kind of challenging your just ability to just be kind of like totally present to your wife. And then the thing happens where it's like your kids grow up and they leave the house, and now it's like you have to kind of like fall in love again almost. Mm-hmm. And like, you like this person who sort of was your beloved, hopefully remained your beloved, but potentially kind of turned into like a coworker or just kind of co-parent, whatever, like where was very oriented on this other kind of shared love. Now it's like, we have to fall in love with each other again. And I think that's kind of
a beautiful image.
I think that's somewhat of it. But right, to have that, to be in a place where you can, when you're 50, 55, been married 25 years, fall in love again, like though your whole life has got to kind of prepared you for that, right? But Father Haggerty, particularly in Passion of God, he does talk about this, uses this language of Jesus being our beloved. And like that's the fruit of this journey is this transformation where Jesus becomes like our beloved. And for myself, at least personally, and for many people, like our initial conversion, like referring to an experience of Jesus and as beloved, it's like pretty easy. It just flows pretty naturally as it would with, a young man or a woman kind of who falls in love. But then like duties happen, religious obligations happen, ministry happens, we get older, things don't work out the way we want to. And like, it's very easy for Jesus to be a coworker. It's very easy for a relationship with him to be a series of duties or things we do. But there is this time like, okay, like we've been on the journey a little bit, like, am I still your beloved? Can we fall in love again? And I think that is part of like I think that's the invitation at the second conversion, and the fruit of it is, or the door is this radical conversion.
Awesome.
That's well said, bro. Very well said. I love the image of like different stages of life with husband and wife. You make a choice again for the vows, make a choice again for the sacramental life of what it means to be married and what it means to experience God with the other, right?
Mhm.
And there's different seasons of that. And again, we relate that to our own spiritual lives. The only thing I was going to add, guys, and both of you had said it, but it's like the rich young man, let's just put some words to it. Because we all experience it. Like there's a temptation, certainly to moralism, right? There's a temptation to be like making my experience of God about being perfect and about just doing the right thing, right? And we get excited about that because it's like, oh, look at my life. I'm just doing all the right things, right? Pope Benedict talks about the exterior promised land. It's just like, oh man, this is filled with milk and honey. We're doing it, doing all the right things, right? And so we got to be careful of moralism. We're not talking about going deeper and being more perfect just so I can do more perfect things.
Yeah, doing great things.
And doing great things for the Lord, right? That is not what we're talking about. And I think in my own experience, I can often experience a conversion from doing more. And I guess that's what activism is right? There's another moralism and activism. It's like, well, I don't really know what to do in growing my spiritual life. So if I just do more, that's probably a good idea. Right. And so that's also not when we're talking about having a second conversion, it's not about making you busier and doing more for the church. And well, I'm only volunteering 15 hours at church a week at church now. So now I'm just going to go, let's go 30 because it's just like I'm having a deeper conversion. That's not what we're talking about. Right. To your point, if we're talking about the beloved, we're talking about relationship. We're talking about my experience of God in my life that allows me to surrender more and more as time goes on. And if I've gotten distracted or if I've gotten lukewarm or I've gotten comfortable or compromising, then there's an invitation to gentle repentance. And we're reminded again when we go back to the fundamentals, when we go back to the reality of what it means to be in relationship with God, that I'm his son and daughter, and this is what that means, then we realize it's about him. Okay, and then what does that look like in my life, right? So again, just to put a word on those things, I think all of us kind of get in, and we were joking about being busy, we get in the habits of being a radical religious means I'm just really busy. And that being a radical religious is like if I just do more, and if I just show everybody that I'm good at everything and that I'm perfect, that I never sin or that I never have a bad day, then this is what it means to go deeper with the Lord, and that's just silly, right? But it's funny we can get into that without, and if we're not called on that, we're not called back to the beloved, that it can be dangerous.
I think a big part of this as well, just to keep it kind of again really personal and not necessarily like, like. Haggerty has like Father Haggerty has like a really zoomed in sense, and it's super powerful. But I think just when it comes to like when we have a conversion at the beginning of our life or at the beginning of the journey, I think what Jesus does, he does want us, he does give us a lot of consolation, and I think he doesn't do it like, he's very gentle and he's very patient. Right. So like when we have these conversions and sometimes actually they can be dramatic. Like it's like, whoa, that's a big shift, but he's very patient with us and it's doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. Right. But as we keep going along the way, I think what happens, and I can just see this in my own life, when I'm ready for it, Jesus prompts me to give him more permission in my life. And so like with things that I let Jesus into a lot of these rooms, but there's some that I hadn't. That there's rooms of hurt and pain and struggle. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not ready for that. And I don't want to show Jesus that yet, but there's a lot of generosity where I'm going to go all in on other things, but Jesus accepts that. And so we walk and we grow and our vocations kind of develop. And this kind of happened as a friar where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm like this. Remember that story that I like to tell? The one where I was like, it was dramatic. I was like in the hospital and things like that. Like, paralyzed.
What happened?
No, tell that again. Wait, weird.
It sounds like
sounds vaguely familiar. So I'm not going to tell that story, but the point was I was a friar. I was like I had given Jesus permission in some areas of my life, but not every part of my heart. And I think what Jesus did was like, okay, like I want you to give me permission for that. Like, what about that place that really hurts? I'm like, whoa, take it easy. Like, I don't want to show you that yet. I don't want to talk about that. And then we just kind of keep, okay, well, when you're ready. Like, and so Jesus is really patient and gentle, but I think that's a part of the second conversion is a deeper permission to let Jesus into those deeper places that I know are going to hurt and like rock my existence. And usually they're emotional places, relational places. Brothers, we all have this experience with young men and women we walk with, spiritual direction, confession, where they're finally
in a place to say the deeper yes or the beginning of a deeper yes. And there's just radical desire and freedom, but a lot of fear to be like, okay, we're just like, Jesus wants that part of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this like invitation to be, okay, Jesus, I want to let you into this memory in my heart, or this trauma, or maybe this abuse, or maybe this loneliness, this sadness, this depression, this anxiety. And I've never been there before. And maybe sin and shame, right? And we leave these things locked away. And I think a part of the second conversion is giving Jesus the deeper permission to come into these places. And there's just deeper breakthroughs, right?
That's
and
awesome.
I think that's there's so much hope there, because he's so patient and he walks with us, and he doesn't it doesn't mean like, okay, well, I guess in 5 years when I have that deeper breakthrough, I'll be more happy, right? He gives so much to us, but he never stops wanting to heal us so we can receive more of his own life. And so that's a part of it. I was like, okay, like Jesus wants you to give him permission. He wants you to be more generous with these places. And it's beautiful, but it's not easy.
And the gift of intimacy is being seen, right? So it's like, what parts of my heart, and where am I hiding still? I mean, that's a good question for everybody. Where am I hiding still? And the fruit of our life of conversion is intimacy. Okay, the places I'm hiding is affecting that intimacy.
And you're holding on.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, this moment today, let's all consider, what parts of my heart am I still hiding? What would I rather not show him? And he's such a gentle physician, right? It's like, show me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, right there. Like, I want to see that. But he won't force us. Where are you still hiding? And can we trust enough, and can we feel, hopefully in our immediate support group, feeling loved and cared for and safe, we have to feel secure to open our hearts up, right? So that's what the first conversion ideally does, is it sets a security. So we're not insecure before the Lord. We're not insecure before others. And so if I'm secure in the Lord, then I can open my heart up more and more. The more I'm loved, the more I can to be myself, the more I can say, okay, I haven't opened up that to anybody.
And that might take a long time.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But this is the goal. The goal is to not hide anything.
Yeah.
Because he's gentle and loving and kind and wants to see into that, right? Why? For deeper intimacy. Because what does he do in those places? He loves us in those places. He forgives us and heals us and pours his self into those places. But he won't. It does violence to us if he just does it without us actually inviting him in.
Yeah. I have two kind of thoughts on it. The first one kind of with that is, right, there's like a season in life or in formation relationships of essentially like building trust, right? And I think part of that, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but there is a part of like, maybe like the postulates come. And the first thing we do isn't like the hardest thing. The first thing we do isn't like, okay, we're going to go to the desert. We're just going to do this thing. Like the first thing we do is just spend time with them. And I think that, I don't know if it's the primary reason, but one of the fruits of it is like those first couple of months that they're with us, they're learning to trust you, right?
Yeah.
And like, and if you can get to a point where it's like, okay, like, do you trust me? And they can say yes, then it's like, okay, now like, if you really trust me and you give me permission to do what I want to do, like now we can actually go and like, now we can actually start to make some headway, right? And it's almost like, I wonder if that's like part of it. Like there is a phase in the initial period of our relationship with the Lord, or in certain seasons where it's like, okay, like we're kind of growing in trust, but we want to get to this place where it can be like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do, but I fully abandon and fully give myself to your will. And it's like, I feel like that is then it's like, okay, now I can do what I really want to do.
Yeah. I think of that story of Omar in the desert. He's like rappelling for the first time, and I'm down at the bottom.
Yeah.
And he's like so afraid. I'm like, Omar, you need to turn and look at me, because I needed to show him there's water.
Yeah.
And he's like, Father, you're lucky I trust you, because I hate you right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome. Because he can keep going because he trusts me.
Right.
And I'm there.
Yeah.
But it's like really funny because I hate you right now. And I mean,
we feel that sometimes though.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's
I was thinking like, because that is like a lot of the wilderness stuff. Like, and I'm sure it's strategic. Like, okay, we're like, we're with these guides for a while before we start, rappelling off of 150 foot, 160 foot stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because there is some like, okay, now that you can now that you trust me, now we can like really go for it.
Yeah, totally.
What was the other?
You had another thing, bro.
I did have
where
another
your
thing.
note? Get your notes.
It was trust. It was.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was a good example of what you're saying.
Oh, this was the thing. This was in my reading of, I think it was second conversion. The word that really popped for me was sacrifice. Because a lot of times at the beginning of a relationship, even relationship with the Lord, like our prayer, because there can be a lot of consolation, there's a lot of interest, and it's just, there's novelty, all this sort of stuff, right? That it doesn't always require like a huge amount of sacrifice for prayer. But once you've been, for example, married for 20 years, or once you've been in religious life for, a number of years, like prayer now isn't necessarily easy. And it's like, okay, what I'm asking you to do, what I'm inviting you to do now is to unite sacrifice with your prayer. And I think that is, that's part of like what we talked about. It's like, okay, now we're getting to a place in this relationship with Jesus where he's wanting to go places that I don't necessarily want to go. And he's inviting me to respond and to stay faithful to him in a way which like my own will doesn't necessarily want to. And it's just like, okay, like I'm inviting you just to sacrifice. And I'm to love me, like, and I don't know, there's something for me that's almost so like humble about God being like, okay, I'm willing to I'm willing to receive your sacrifice. Like I'm willing to receive from you almost in this now. Like and for me at least, that was kind of like the word, I just think of like, priests who've been doing it for 15, 20 years and their prayer life's dried up. And maybe, they're just dutifully saying the breviary and they don't want to spend that time in front of the Blessed Sacrament. They don't want to have that personal prayer time. It's like, it doesn't come naturally. Like, okay, like, is this Jesus inviting you to respond to his love with a sacrificial love? And I don't know, that resonates with me.
What is that? We talked about Father Conrad recently. When God wants to love you, he gives you consolation. And when he wants you to love him, he gives you suffering and struggles, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just the gift of the reality of first conversion, most likely many examples and daily examples of God being consoling and loving and merciful and good and so wonderful. Right. And it's not consistent. It's not like it's wonderful all the time, but there's a stage of that for certainly. But part of this, the second conversion is just the reality of now there's an opportunity for God to say like, hey, this is now what it means to move forward and make deeper choices and use your deeper part of you in freedom to love me and to love and to respond in a different way. And Haggerty will talk about that too. It's clear that a person has responded in the second conversion because again, his life is fruitful. Even in the midst of suffering, in the midst of struggle, he still is a very fruitful man or fruitful woman in the way they love and the way they sacrifice and the way they give. It's like they forgot about themselves, right? And sometimes I think we can get a little whiny, me personally, like whiny in like the Lord's asking me something and I'll do it, but it's just like, I get a little dramatic, hard to believe. But just the reality of it is sometimes when you see someone actually doing that heroically, making a choice for this in the midst of suffering to keep going, in the midst of suffering to keep offering,
or the monotony. I think of like parents, like just every day getting up and just being a faithful spouse or mother, father. Like it's just so beautiful.
But what's happening in them when they just seem to be exteriorly just doing the same thing day after day after day, obviously with love and things, but what's happening in them is God is perfecting them. And is a second conversion, this invitation to be living a life of grace and perfection. That's what, and then that makes people afraid, but that's what's happening. Something is deepening in them, even though it's unseen, right? But we can be consoled that if we say yes to that, there's a real fruitfulness that's happening there.
Well, like I think there's another way it kind of happens in religious life is like when you first enter, like if someone has to like do something really hard, the friars aren't going to let the postulant do it. And they're not going to let the novice do it. And actually, if it's really, really like a big sacrifice, we're probably not actually going to let like the young brothers do it, right? It's like, okay, this is essentially, it's like, you know what I mean? And like as examples of that would be, who's going to take, like when we have at the homeless shelter, we have we have different hours during, say, Christmas. And it's like, who's going to be the person who's on duty and with the guys so that they can be there while we're having like our shared brunch? Like who's going to take that? And right, there's like a certain point where it's like, okay, like you're kind of mature enough in this, like you can put on your big boy pants now. Like you can like enter into this fatherhood and
like freely, yeah.
So you're like at a place now mature enough that like you're ready to sacrifice. And I wonder, like, if that's somehow, analogously, like the Lord's like, okay, like I've been with you, I've been forming you, I've been walking with you, I've been caring for you in these ways. Now I'm like, I've been sacrificially loving you, and in these ways. Now I'm ready for you to kind of like, right, to kind of grow in this dignity. What's the thing from your Gaddium? Like man is not defined by his sins and weakness, but by
His capacity to become the image of the Son.
so, but there's by God's love for him
Father,
and his capacity to live like the Son.
This is the quote we always like. Yeah, something like that. But the Father's
second
love, I'm
part-
defined by the Father's love for me.
Yeah.
But then the second part, like, is one that you jump, like, and the capacity to live like your Son. And this, I think, part of the second conversion really is this radical surrender, sacrificial love, and it's like really starting to grow in capacity to love like Jesus himself loved.
Bro. That's awesome. Because what came to my heart, the word like Jesus loved them and he loved them to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the second conversion has this quality of persevering love, of like the sacrificial
That's
love
awesome.
that I'm able to like stay in it and like Jesus loved them to the end. Right? And he wants us to love like that, where it's not maybe, I was just thinking like we're 13 years into, or 12, 13 years into religious life. Like I love every moment of my life, being a friar, being a priest, being brothers, like loving the poor, loving the postulants. I love it. But it's true that sometimes it's not as flashy as it once was. Or like, it's not always fun. Like, oh, this is great. Like, but I love every part of it. And we want to have these deeper conversions. And I'm not saying I'm the prime example, but I think this is it. It's like, it's learning how to like enter into this new way of loving. And it doesn't mean it's always like fun. It doesn't mean it's always like pretty, but it's like, wow, like I came and now like the deeper desire of my heart is just this persevering love to love like Jesus when it's hard. And I want to love the brothers and I just want to be there and to do the hard things. It's beautiful.
And the way we see it in our guys in formation and the way we see it in us is like, it's a question of like, can this be sustained? Can this grace and this perceived vocation, this perceived discernment in this young man, can he sustain this? How does he sustain this? Well, deeper conversion, right? Deeper healing, deeper experience of God providing for him and because then it's like, okay, a guy's first year is postulancy and then he's a novice and then he's in temporary vows. Like, is he able to persevere in loving and persevere in going deeper and persevere in prayer? And then you're like, oh man, this guy might be able to sustain this for the next 8 years. Because you see this happening and you see him constantly
Going deeper.
responding to the invitation to go deeper, right? So the saints of our time lived this for a long time, right? John Paul II, Mother Teresa, they did this for 80 years. How does that happen?
And now more than ever, there's mothers and fathers and husbands and wives and like 22-year-old kids like that are living this way, that have lived this type of generosity.
Yeah, and then you have all of a sudden grandma and grandpa are married for 80 years and they're the happiest they ever could be, but then they've been offering themselves to one another and to their kids and grandkids for forever, right? And so that's God, and that they've been, whether they know it or not, they've been responding to a deeper invitation day after day after day to give themselves away, right? And so I think it's a sustainability question, but it's just like, I love the idea of persevering love. That's what we're looking in, and for ourselves and for these young men, are they continuing to persevere in their experience of God and then the ability to be free to give themselves away?
I'm gonna share two, if I can remember, two examples of this, kind of leaning in towards like practically what do I do with this for the listener, right? And Father Innocent alluded to this. It's also in Father Haggerty's book, where he talks about the day he was ordained a priest. One of the older priests came up to him and said, "You've just given your life to God, and now don't spend the rest of it taking it back." Which is kind of something that Father Andrew would say a lot as well, right? All right, so you've given the Lord everything. Now don't just spend. Like he who heard you say yes now doesn't want you to say no, and right, that is a thing probably just for life and relationships. Okay, I'm all in. I'm here for, like, I give you everything, and then slowly and even if you like learn better, you'll learn kind of how to cheat, how to have some more comforts, how to have a little
Compromise,
this or that, the compromises. And I do believe that happens within like real relationships and teams and missions. Like, okay, like I'm all in, all for everybody, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna take my time here. I'm gonna like. I'm gonna like, someone's gonna donate some Oreos and I'm gonna like,
That happens.
I'm gonna hide them in my cell and not like, like that happened at
What are you looking at me for?
Not one of the brothers that happened at St. Leopold. He was getting ready to go on retreat and somebody donated Girl Scout cookies. And so he tried to like hide it somewhere
so he could take it on
in the
hermitage.
freezer. Yeah. Like behind stuff. And
That was awesome.
People found it and were like, give them a hard time. But you kind of learn like, okay, well, yeah, okay.
A little something.
Yeah. And so part of the like in the desert, part of the invitation is like, if there's something like that, is like, hey, something that you've taken back for your own that's preventing you from loving the Lord or loving another well, like fully, like can we start to, what we've taken back, and we start to give away again. It happened in the desert, and we'll talk about a bunch more in Lent, but where like we go in there, and again, it's like, okay, we're all in. There's value to the sacrifice.
Comforts.
There's value to the difficulty, and we're just gonna like lean into it. And as the more you get in there, the more you kind of like learn like little hacks. And a couple of times we started having our meditation hour in the morning. And so there wasn't like, typically there was the mass fast. And so guys wouldn't have coffee in the morning because they couldn't with like the fast. But then when it was just meditation, we were having mass later. It's like, okay, that's not a thing. And so guys started like making coffee and like having something hot to drink. And it was fascinating, not just because like the morning wasn't hard anymore. Because before then it was like a real challenge
and
to like
cold.
enter into it because it was cold. But it was like, there was this, as soon as somebody saw that was an option, it like spread like wildfire. And it was like, the guys like, it was just, and it was all
like,
of us.
It was coveted.
It was
like, oh, this is what we're doing, and we have to have it. And
it was totally like, I'm thinking of whoever's in Lord of the Rings, like how they look at the ring, like my precious, like that. Like there was this like, they're like the way they're looking at and responding to this coffee is like, there's
That's
something
awesome.
else going on here.
That's awesome.
And I think we experienced it as well too. And so we're like,
so when you did, I mean,
Well,
you had the inspiration. I think it was really solid.
because I experienced, I'm like, this is like really nice mornings now. And it's like, and then I, mentioned it to Brother Colby. I'm like, hey, like, what do you think what do you think about that coffee thing? Like, what do you think we didn't do it? And I explained, because part of it is like, hey, like, this is the thing in religious life, is you come in as a postulant, or you come in the beginning and you say, I'm all in. I value sacrifice. I value the hard things. And then you just learn how to cheat, and you learn how to take off the edge. And I talked with Father Innocent about it. I talked about with Jake, the missionary. And so we ended up that night telling the guys like, hey, we're not going to be having coffee anymore.
And I said it, and I explained why. and guys were like, it was hard for them. They're like, what? Like it was, and they knew. So it's like, they didn't fight it, but they knew like, whoa, like we're really clinging to this, and this is a comfort, and this was distracting. It was awesome. It was awesome.
But that's kind of part of what we're going. Okay, like where are you starting to take care of yourself and find consolation and cheat and take the edge off? Because it just doesn't take a lot to like really take the edge off and whatever in our love, whatever. Can we? And
it kind of numbs. It kind of numbs the sacrifice.
Yeah. And the second one is like, okay, so that's one little thing. But the other thing is like, we'll get into it maybe in the podcast, but there was like a very dramatic thing that happened about day 13, and we have 1 week left, and it shook some guys up, and we kind of like had to regroup. And it was like, we had to kind of like basically like take a day to like regroup. And it's like, and the guys we had to basically like have a conversation like, hey, we have to re-enter into this. Like we still have another week, and like you have to choose this again. And I think that's part of like, that's like a second conversion type of thing. Okay, you've done it. It's been hard. You feel like you've done your duty. You've kind of checked the box. Okay, you had the experience. Now it's time to like drift off in the sunset, or to chill, and job's over. But it's like in your relationships, in your relationship with the Lord, in your relationship with marriage, in your relationship with mission team life, like, okay, when it's not fun anymore, it's not cute, you just got punched in the face, are you willing to re-enter?
Yeah, that's great.
Knowing now that it's difficult, are you willing to freely enter and sacrificially enter the difficulty again?
I mean, bro, that's right on. And we recognized in this conversation with guys, and I appreciated their honesty, but they're like, there was a commentary on our own humanity, because they're like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
Like it was just really hard. We had an experience that was really hard. I'm tired, and I just want out.
I'm done with this stupid desert.
Yeah, that's what like one of the guys said, like, I'm done. And then Father Mark Mary and I, like, but this is where it is. Like, this is where the yes comes. Is that what's going on in your heart? Can you trust in Jesus right now that this is the breakthrough? This is the second kind of conversion, to be like, Jesus, I want what you want. I'm like, guys, we're not going home. Yeah. We have 7 days left, and the Lord wants to use it. Right? This is born of fire. Like, this is what the podcast is me about. But yes, Lord, I want to get out of here. I want to go home, or I want my coffee, but I'm going to let go and trust you.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like an example, like pretend I become a missionary, right? And I'm a missionary, and I'm all in. whatever. I take a year off or 2 years off. I fundraise. I move across the country. I'm all in. I'm super generous. Everyone's preferences above mine. And then at a certain point, like I start to have conflicts, and there's other conflicts, and I'm like, these people aren't who I thought they were, and they like, and I don't want to live with these people, not even like sacrifice for them. And it's like once you've been around for 6 months, 8 months, and now it's like, okay,
say yes to that.
Now, are you willing to continue to like re-enter the communal life? You know, you're a parish priest, or you've been there or whatever it is, and it's like, it's not fun anymore. It's not cute. You're like, everyone's complaining. Like, are you still willing to like enter and re-engage and still be vulnerable? All that sort of stuff. I think that's.
And there's a temptation to think that, oh, this must not be God's will for me because I'm struggling, and just like, oh, I want out. Like maybe like we talked about discernment in God's will. Like no. Like God is allowing this so we can go deeper and with this deeper generosity.
And it's funny being on the outside looking in, because like, for example, just use the desert stuff. We'll talk about it later. Is like, it happens all the time in formation where you're like, you see the crisis, you see the point where they're suffering and they have to make a decision. And us looking in, it's like, okay, like this is it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just to give the Lord permission to like do that with us as well, because it might take 30 years before you get to the moment. And Jesus is like, okay, here's the moment. Like if you choose and you re-engage, like we're gonna fly. Like what we're gonna do and how you're gonna fall in love and how like, but like this is it. But we have to be willing to kind of sacrificially re-choose relationship and fidelity and all that when it's not cute.
Amen.
Awesome.
Like when you have to do a bunch of podcasts and you don't want to.
And you just rocked it, bro.
You just dive in and you just do it.
Sweet.
Sweet.
All right.
That's it.
Prayer. I think it's my turn.
It's your turn.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Father in heaven, we love you. We thank you. We thank you for never letting us be complacent. We thank you for the more of your own heart and your desire for us to always come deeper and to love like you and to live like you and to be generous like you. Father, never let us compromise. Never let us plateau. Never let us hide from you so that we could be more fully alive in you. We give you our coffee and our sacrifices so we can just receive you more. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy
We give you
Spirit.
our hummus and we give you our tea and we give you our.
Hey, for the record,
Are we gonna? Yeah.
No, I think it's just good to know that it's like we sacrifice coffee, but like there's a proper place for it.
You can have it at breakfast.
You can
just
have it.
couldn't have it.
Yeah, you just had to dig deep for
And
the
that was
first
the
2
thing, because it
hours.
was like first thing in the morning, what everyone was thinking about was
coffee.
not Jesus or the Lord, it was coffee. And I think that was the thing, that was the real thing.
Because
Like,
we have coffee as friars,
what like
but
when-
it's like
when everyone was getting up in the morning and what was on their minds and their hearts.
coffee. I want to be warm.
coffee.
I want comfort.
And it was like, no, we can have it at breakfast.
But we're gonna dig deep.
The first thing that we're going to choose every morning is
Is
going to
Jesus.
be to love Jesus, even if it's sacrificial.
You want to come to the desert next year?
Come on. I'm very busy.
busy. All right, more to come.
God bless everybody.
Born
Peace,
of
y'all.
fire.
Peace. Born of fire. Get it.
Nacido de fuego.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey. Little by little we learn a little more each day that God is love. That life is short. That all will be well. And I know